This episode of Comics for Fun and Profit is brought to you by Threadless. More importantly, the Comics Fun Profit shop on Threadless at comicsfunprofit.threadless.com, where you can find, about half a dozen different designs, plenty of Comics for Fun and Profit themed merch. If you just want a t-shirt, you're good, and if you want sweatshirts or other swaggy items, and you can get anything. Phone cases, shower curtains. It runs the gamut. Skateboards, I think. So check that out. We've already sold several. We're excited about the fact that the folks that want to support us in this way are able to and wear our merch out in the real world. That's pretty exciting stuff. So get your Comics for Fun and Profit branded items at comicsfunprofit.threadless.com.
Aloha! This is Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing a friend of the show, artist Sue Lee. She's here to promote her latest work, Carmilla, the First Vampire. Now, this original graphic novel was written by Amy Chu, and of course, the art is done by Sue. It is part of the Karen Berger books. It is an imprint through Dark Horse Comics. This is an original graphic novel that is now available in your comic shops right now. Now, please note that this original graphic novel is for mature readers. So Sue, welcome back to the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Jason. It's always great to be back. It's always fun to be here. I'm okay, just working.
Yes, no, but thank you very much for your time. Also, too, I'm going to say thank you very much for the advanced preview copies. I love it. It's a very good story. So we have
I'm
a
so
lot.
glad.
We have a lot to talk about. I'm going to start jumping into questions, but before we start jumping in, can you promote your website or your social platforms?
Sure. My website is suleedraws.com. You can find me on Twitter at Sue D Lee, SOODLEE, and then my Instagram is Sue Lee Draws.
Okay. Now, again, before we start talking about Carmilla, I on your podcast, and we will talk about your podcast a little bit later in the interview. Your podcast is called Spill Your Guts. Your co-host is Sweeney Boo. If I remember correctly, you guys did a Halloween special. Literally, I think it was released on Halloween, if I remember correctly. You guys talked about um, your love of the horror genre,
Yes.
and now, if I remember correctly, I think um, I think I know that you like vampires.
Yes.
So I'm gonna ask, do you remember the first time you saw either a vampire movie or read a book or a manga about vampires?
Sure. I think vampires, it's always like a very a timeless genre, right? I
Hmm.
think no matter it expands time in days, right? Like it's like a thing people loved ever since it was became an inception, right?
Hmm.
Of the creation of vampires. But um I really loved Anne Rice books when I was
Yes.
younger, and so I grew up on them. And I also like read almost all her like vampire and like witch series and everything. So I was a big fan of that, and like other miscellaneous like vampire novels back in like the 90s and early 2000s, like zeros.
Hmm.
So I forgot what those titles were, but I've always been a big fan of vampires, especially because of Anne Rice. And I think I when Interview with the Vampire came out, that was pretty big.
Yes.
um and I was a big fan of that, although I don't think it holds up well now if
Hmm.
you watch it now, especially at my age.
Hmm.
um and then Queen of the Dam came out, and I
Hmm.
don't think that aged well either, but I remember those being like the go-to movies for the vampire genre. um yeah, but ever since Anne Rice I was a big fan.
Hmm. Okay. Let's see. Actually, one off the actually two off the cuff questions about vampire
Sure.
movies or TV shows. Have you seen the AMC's interview with the vampire series?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I like it. There's some things that, as like, oh, someone who's actually read the books, like, oh, it's not like this, it's not
Mhm,
like that. But for TV and for the property, like of what they did, because I know Anne Rice was producing it or helped writing the series before she passed.
mhm,
Um, so it has her seal of approval. So for what it is for TV and for now, like the time and with everything going on, I think it's pretty good. I
mhm,
like it a lot.
mhm. And then I'm going to ask you one another off the cuff question. Have you ever, because this is one of my favorite vampire movies, have you ever watched Stakeland USA? It's a real independent movie. I want to say came out 10 in the last 10 years.
You know what? It sounds really familiar, but I don't know if I have. Stakeland USA? No, I don't think so.
It's God, I think I caught it on.
Oh, I know what it is.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I think it's one of those things that I never actually got a chance to finish.
Hmm.
It's one of those things like I think someone had it on in the background or something like that, but
Yeah.
I've never actually gotten around to sitting and watching it.
Hmm. But yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I just wanted to, yeah, because I don't know, for some weird reason I like that movie,
Hey,
and
it's a good recommendation. I'll check it out.
yeah, because and for listeners, it's the reason why I love it is it's kind of like it's one of those post-apocalyptic stories where the vampires have taken over the world, and there's different subgroups of vampires,
That's right.
and it's very nice. It's you can tell it's very independently made because yeah, it's just it's so cool. It really is. Like you get the real
Yeah.
feel and sense that America is just desolated.
Sure. I do love a post-apocalyptic movie.
All right. Now, the question that's going to start leading up to the interview is like, so how did you and Amy team up for this book?
Well, I think first that happened was Karen reached out to me
Hmm.
to work on a book with her and Amy, and I was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely."
Hmm.
So she emailed me and like she's acquaintances with my agent, and then she hooked me up, and then they were like, "Oh, I think." So it was like a perfect storm of things, and I met Amy years ago, I think at a book signing, and like I think she said that I may have like asked, "Oh, are you like I would love to work with you," kind of thing. But it was
Yes.
like so long ago that I completely forgot I even asked that. And it's
Yeah.
one of those things that's like, well, there was a project and then the pandemic hit. And so why
Yes.
not work on it then? And then, Karen reached out and it was just, like a perfect coincidence, I think.
That's so cool. So okay, so I'm going to start jumping in. So Carmilla, the first vampire. I love this opening by T.S. Eliot from and it from I'm not sure if it's one of his poems or something. The wastelands. Quote, I was neither living nor dead, and I knew nothing. I just thought that was probably one of the the begin one of the best lines to begin this graphic novel. Now, Sue, I'm going to be honest. I've never heard of Carmilla the First Vampire until I saw, your postings. You start to tweet that, hey, I'm doing this, graphic novel. So may I ask if you can tell listeners who Carmilla is in the sense of like literature, you
So,
know?
Amy knows more about Carmilla than I do, and she did a lot of heavy research on it. But she's apparently the first European vampire,
Hmm.
female vampire,
Yes.
not the first vampire, but the female vampire. And she predates Dracula, I think.
Yes. Yes. I remember. Yeah. Looking some of that
So
information up.
yeah, so she was the first one, and it's very like debated apparently, but nerds will be nerds, right?
Yes.
um, but she was the first one, the first female vampire, and it's a very short novel. Actually, it's very
Mhm.
short.
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to actually read it, but I
Hmm.
did do audiobooks and everything.
Oh, okay.
Um, and it's very interesting, and it's like a romance. Um,
Yes. Hmm.
and I think it's really for the time, I think it's very nuanced. So I
Hmm.
don't want to spoil anything because it's like,
Yeah.
sure, it's not really a spoiler because the book's been out for like many, many years. But I think it's something worth reading for yourself or
Hmm.
listening to since there's audiobooks if it's
Hmm.
available near you or on your apps.
Hmm. Okay. Now I'm going to start jumping right in. For listeners, you know, um, can you tell us what the graphic novel is about?
Well, I don't want to give any spoilers because there's a
Yes.
lot. There's a
Hmm.
lot of like things that happens in this
Yes.
book, and so I without spoiling anything, it's about Athena, who is the main character. She's a
Hmm.
Chinese American woman who is living in 90s New York,
Hmm.
and she is a social worker and ends up helping someone who she probably couldn't help herself
Yes.
helping, and a lot of interesting things happen. Now it
Hmm.
is a vampire story.
Yes.
It's
Hmm.
about the Chinese American experience
Yes.
slash Asian American
Hmm.
experience. It's about life in the 90s. It's also about romance. It's about love. It's
Yes.
about trying to discover who you are,
Hmm.
identity and family, and where you belong in the world.
Yes.
And also and I want to like emphasize family as well because that's a really big component in the book.
Yes. Hmm.
But it is kind of like a full gamut. It's like romance, horror, thriller, it's dark, it's sweet, it's it kind of has everything in it, I think.
Yes, because it's and because like it's really listeners, again, I'm going to make, because before me and Sue start to talk, started recording, I told her we are not going to spoil this book because there's so many layers to this.
There's a lot.
You know, um, you know, yeah. So, but also too, we're not going to spoil the story, but I also think too that what's kind of nice is that it touches upon um it touches upon um not only you know the Chinese American experience in the 90s, and even and still can relate to today too, but also too, like there's um I'm gonna say, like, there's, because the story to me feels real, and Sue, jump in and you can comment on this, because it's like there's little subtleties about um there's subtle racisms in there in everyday life,
Yes.
you
Well,
know.
because it's a part of most of our lives.
Yes.
And I've dealt with it, so I think it's not in your face, it just is.
It's,
So
yeah.
it's just a part of life, unfortunately, for marginalized people or POC in general.
Hmm. You know, and then I'm gonna, and because one of my questions was, I'm just, and I think I know why Amy may have chose Athena to be a social worker, especially in New York in the 90s. But I'm just asking, did you ever talk to Amy about, why is Athena like a social worker? Why isn't she like a nurse or a computer analyst or something? Did you guys ever talk about that?
We did briefly. I think it's just because Athena is like a very flawed, but flawed to the point of like kind of even if it hurt you, you want to help others, that type of character.
Hmm.
She would like throw herself in fire if it meant saving other people.
Yes.
So I think we wanted someone who maybe is like clouded by like just doing the right thing, and
Hmm.
even though maybe it isn't the best thing, and not that
Yes.
social work, that's not what I meant for
No,
social workers,
no.
but I think Athena as a character is like she wants to be good, but
Yes.
she doesn't know when it's hurting herself or others around her. Um, but
Yes.
the social worker, I think, is like the perfect um career for her because it's something that like she's used to. It's like already part of her, it's
Hmm.
kind of like in her DNA.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I'm going to add to a comment too, is that also too, as majority of the social workers, they really deal with marginalized people.
Right.
Some, they have to deal with the homeless. They deal with,
Sure.
abused, whether, some type of, like either abused children, um, working in the LGBTQ,
Sure.
population, and so forth. So, and because when, and it's perfect for her in this story. It really is.
Sure.
Um, I'm going to ask, may I ask for, I'm going to ask if you can just briefly talk about some of the characters. And I know we can't give out too much spoilers, but like, like who is Morgan in Athena's life?
Morgan is her partner,
Hmm.
and someone who is trying to ground her, um, without saying much.
Yeah, no, yeah, yes.
It's a character, I think we're all very familiar with,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
And
You're
then,
trying to save the person trying to save people.
oh yeah, that's yes. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I know we can't really
I know.
much, I know, but the thing is that, um and yeah, so like Morgan is that stable person in her life. I think
Mhm.
I can at least safely say that. And then I'm gonna ask, who is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I may pronounce Athena's grandfather is, the Chinese name wrong, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yes.
Hmm. Like, like who, wow, like, well, of course I already said that he's the grandfather. Um, did you want to?
I think he is the one certainty. It's someone. Ye is the kind of character that he is your home. He is
Yes.
like what the main character will, um because the main character is flawed and not perfect.
Hmm.
And she has a lot of like learning to do, and I think she's also very insecure. And
Hmm.
he is, I know Morgan is like trying to be a rock, but ultimately Yaya is like the rock for her. It is,
Yes.
it is her, he is her life, right?
Yes. Hmm.
So he's very important.
Hmm.
Um and also, like he loves her very much and vice versa. So
Hmm.
I think it's someone she holds very dearly, and
Hmm.
tries to guide her in the right way.
Hmm. And then, if you don't mind me, I'm going to comment, and please feel free to add. But like you said, yeah, he's that home for her, for Athena, and also too, he's the one that provides like unconditional love to
Of
her,
course.
because
As
he
most
always,
parents or grandparents do, right?
mhm, you know, because I was kind of going, because it was interesting, because if I remember correctly, yeah, and I'm not going to spoil too much, but Yeye is, I think he's the first generation. Um, he was the first generation to come to America, and
Mhm.
and for most of us, it's, like our grandparents, they still hold to traditions of the old
Of
ways and
course.
stuff like that. But the other thing with Yeye I thought was very good was he loves Athena unconditional.
Mhm.
He doesn't uh when he asks her, oh, so how's Morgan doing? It's not a, oh, are you still in that relationship, or da da da, da da.
Right.
It's how's she doing? Hey, and
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's a very chill dude. He's very like he's experienced a lot. He doesn't really worry about things you don't need to worry about. He's very like, very like zen, right?
yeah,
Very like go with the flow, be water type of person.
yeah, yes, that is right. So, um, And then I'm going to ask for if we can just briefly talk about this character, and don't go too much into this, but can you at least tell our listeners who is Violet in this story?
She is a force that comes into her life, is all I will say for
Yeah,
now.
that's fine. That's fine. So, all right. I'm gonna ask, like, did Amy ever tell you, or did you guys ever talk about, like, why did this story take place specifically in 1996? And also, too, it was mentioned, like, that's the year of the rat in the Chinese calendar.
Yes.
Did Amy ever, like, was there any significance to that or anything?
I didn't really we didn't really discuss that much, but it's mostly like she has a vision, I
Mm-hmm.
like it, so I'll just go with it. But
Oh no, yeah.
also, the 90s is like a very specific time period, I think. It has like a very old New York feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um Also, like, technology was a very important factor in when telling the story, or the lack thereof technology. So it feels very like old, but like
Yes.
not vintage, but it does feel like there's a very specific setting for this, and it works because it needed to be told in a certain way
Mm-hmm.
for the time period. um Plus, there's something very special about New York in the 90s. It's
Okay.
like very gritty.
Mm-hmm.
It goes with the horror theme. It's
Mm-hmm.
like kind of perfect for like the vampire setting, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And also like it just has like it definitely looks different now than it did in the 90s because I grew up in New York all my
Yes.
life.
Mm-hmm.
So it all worked out. Like there was a specific reason, and then there was like a technical reason, I should say, and then there was like, well, it actually makes sense because of the setting and the timeline,
Mm-hmm.
and the feel and the look of it, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it just like works that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, like, and I didn't add this in my notes because when you mentioned about, like, the technology in the 90s, was there but wasn't what it is today. And
Yeah.
if you tell me, hey, Jason, I can't talk anymore about that, but because I know, of course, again, we have to go back that this is a horror story. And then when Athena is a social worker, she starts talking to her clients. Her clients would say, yeah, there's this big black thing that came out after so and so. You know, cell phones were around back then, but they weren't able to take pictures. It was just so hard to
Right.
communicate. Whereas, like, nowadays, you turn on YouTube and, ooh, look, you can see the ghost walking through the forest, type
Right.
deal,
Right. Right. If it's real, sure.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Um, now, um, listeners, so Carmilla, the first vampire. Now, it was written by, I'm going to try to pronounce this. I think it's a French author's name. Is Sheridan La Fanu.
Yep.
Now, um, now, Amy also referenced his other book in this graphic novel, In a Glass Darkly. I'm just going to ask, did you ever get a chance to look through that book or the audio book? I'm
I
just
have
asking you.
not. No,
Okay.
no, you're fine. No, I have not.
Mhm.
I unfortunately, it's such a shame, but I don't really have time to read a lot. It's so bad.
No, Sue, I'm going to say, I know this is an audio podcast, but you can see behind, I'm pointing. You see
Sure.
the, you see all these boxes, the
Oh
short
yeah.
boxes. I think the last time I even touched those comics was maybe last year.
Right, right, exactly. See?
No, but yeah, but I know she references. She puts some of the she 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 put some of that into this graphic novel, which is really, it's really nice. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Now this is a process question. When you were working with Amy, did Amy give you a full script to work with?
There was like little tweaks here and there, but for the most part, absolutely. It's solid stuff, but also she gave me like artistic, freedom, of course. So did
Hmm.
Karen, and whatever I decided to change, they went with it. If it was good, right? And
Yes.
but for the most part, yeah, they were pretty full scripts.
Oh, okay. All right. And then um now, like, did you guys talk about locations? Like, this is where Athena should be living,
Oh yeah, we talked a lot about reference. We sent each other like sent references and was like, "Oh, this is where blah 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 blah." And then, of course I, kind of like pieced those together and
mhm.
based them up off of like almost real oop, sorry about that.
No.
Almost real locations in New York.
Mhm. Because the other thing also too that I loved about the book is that it has an it ha, it's very it's a nice detail, and it has that lived in feeling. It gives me that sense of the New York, and actually of New York. Now, I've never visited New York, but it just looks incredible. And I think your opening shot of, no, like I said, with the subway, because this is in the 90s, but you see the Twin Towers in the background, and I thought that was pretty cool. It's just all those details
Right.
in there.
Well, it's because like Amy and I have been, Amy's been in New York for a long time and I've lived here all my life, right?
Mhm.
So it's like it's all very like nostalgic for us, and also
Yes.
I remember how it feels and looks, and
Yeah.
like with the colors I wanted to give in that it's like a very 90s, like some of it is every color palette I used for the scenes was deliberate on what the scene was supposed to be about and what the
Yes.
atmosphere was. So I
Yes.
wanted to give it like a very 90s horror, but also like very old New York. Like if you looked at like a vintage photo of New York, it's kind of like not saturated, it's a little like diluted.
Mhm.
I really wanted to go for that.
Oh, okay. Um, and also in the graphic novel, you guys use like um is it Doyer Street? Right? That's a real location. The
Yes.
locations in the graphic novel, you guys are trying to make sure that was a real location. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also because listeners, if you do pick up this graphic novel, there is an actual picture. Actually, I think it's from the 1900, like no, 1909, I think, of how Doyer Street looked back then. So yeah, and also um Carmilla's club is, now correct me if I'm wrong. It because in the Now correct me if I'm wrong, because if I read the back matter correctly, that's kind of based on a Chinese restaurant that was a Chinese theater. Is that correct? That's in New York. Is that correct?
Yes, that's I actually don't know of it, but Amy does. So I was like, okay, cool. That's actually pretty interesting. See,
Hmm.
there are things I didn't know either.
No, yeah. Okay. And then so I know you and Amy, like you said, that you guys, sent references back and forth. I now correct me if I'm wrong, but when you were working on the book, was it during the pandemic? Or was it a little bit before or was it like the start of the pandemic and you finished it in the pandemic?
We started it in the middle of the pandemic, and
Oh,
it was kind of like the perfect time. I
okay.
couldn't go out or anything, so every
Yeah.
reference I had to use was online, and
Hmm.
I had to do like a lot of deep diving. But it was in the middle of the pandemic, so it was kind of nice that I got to work on it, a little bit longer than I usually would have.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, so it was like all just during that time.
Oh, no, no, yeah. No, because I just realized this, because I was kind of going, because one of my questions I wrote down was, because I was gonna put, I'm joking, did you have lunch at a couple of these Chinese restaurants?
Oh, right. I mean, like once upon a time, a long time ago, sure. I think Amy did in one of the restaurants referenced, and I actually have passed by the place like multiple times.
Hmm.
I just needed like photos of what it looked like before the renovations that I
Oh,
know of
yes.
now. Yeah.
So, all right. Now, let's see. Do you want to give shout outs you know to any other members of the team that help you and Amy on this book?
Yeah, Sal did such a great job on letters, honestly.
Hmm.
He's so easy to work with. He's great. He's really talented. And he like took notes about specific things, and I think it adds so much to the way the book looks. And it's great to see the letters too,
Hmm.
you see the art and it's put together and you're like, okay, cool. And then you see the letters and you're like, oh, it's a real book now, right?
Hmm.
Karen is a great editor. She's done like she gives you like the best notes I've ever had in my life. She knows exactly what she's saying,
Hmm.
and like really tailored it so that everything worked tightly and as well as possible.
Yes. Hmm.
So it was like an honor to work with her. Everybody was like very helpful, but it's like quite a team. It's
Yes.
kind of a dream team,
Hmm.
So I'm really grateful and honored I got to work with everyone on this.
Hmm. All right. Now again, no spoilers. Um, do you think we might see Athena in the future? More
You
stories.
have you have to see.
Okay.
I'd like for other people who've read it to see what they thought of it at the end. You guys let me know.
All right. Um, I'm gonna continue on to your some of your other things. Another work that you've come up that you're gonna be working with DC Comics, and like I mentioned before, it's like I'm little. This is a blind spot for me. So can you talk about like this DCU? Is it Ruby crossover? Am I pronouncing the? Okay.
Yes, it's a American anime, I guess is how I would explain it, but it's by Rooster Teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Ruby is from Rooster Teeth, and it's an American anime. And yeah, I they did a crossover a few years ago, and they're starting up another one again.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I am starting an issue a few issues later because the first few issues were drawn by another artist. I don't know if she's comfortable with me saying it,
No,
who it
no,
is.
don't. Yeah.
But I know that was strange and vague, but there was some stuff online that like I felt really terrible about. But so it's like a very interesting series.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like quite popular series online. And I'm not really like too educated on anime and like the types of anime that are out there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very interesting. Yeah, and so it's practically a Justice League crossover. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things that happen.
Yes.
Um like the Justice League team is there as well as the Ruby team.
Mm-hmm.
Um I don't want to spoil anything,
Yeah.
but for those who've actually read the first crossover that Marguerite Bennett wrote,
Mm-hmm.
you will have a good idea of what happens, but this like kicks it up a notch and like kind of it like it's a true crossover now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's already announced, but it's supposed to be in tandem with the animated movie.
I think you're right because
Yeah.
I remember I think I saw a tweet or something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think
Okay.
people are very excited for the animated movie,
Mm-hmm.
and so this will like tie that in very well with that. So it's
Oh.
like it's kind of like opening up a whole nother universe for the Ruby series.
Oh. Okay. All right. But I'm gonna think it's kind of cool because at, at least the animated movie and because I'm guessing that the animated movie comes out and then this series will kind of come out sort of together, which is kind of nice, you know. So yeah. And then do,
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna ask, do you know when this series is gonna start coming out or?
Yes, in February.
Oh, okay. And is it like a six? Is it like a one of those mini series, like a 6-issue mini series?
A 7-issue miniseries.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right.
Is
Okay,
that a miniseries? I guess it is, right?
yeah, no, yeah, no, I know it's yeah. I know what you mean. Yes,
I guess
or
technically it is, right? Yeah.
or a limited.
A limited series. Okay, that's fair.
I miss the days when we could at least say, you know, a limited, like a mini series. It's either 3 or 6 issues. A maxi series is like 12. You know.
Sure, sure.
All right. Um. Now I'm gonna talk. I'm gonna ask you about spill your butts. Spill your guts. Sorry, that came out wrong. Spill your guts.
That's a whole nother podcast for sure.
Spill your guts podcast. Now, uh, for our listeners, may I ask, can you tell them what your podcast is about?
Sure. It's about a freelancing, and it, it's kind of started with Sweeney and I just talking about what it's like being a freelancer, right? Especially during the pandemic where
Mm-hmm.
we were home all the time, and what it was like working, and kind of like showing people you know what the life of
Mm-hmm.
a
Yes.
freelancer is like. And then we evolved it into kind of like freelancing and mental health, and like the
Yes.
other side of what we do, and the nuances of it. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really go too detail into like there's the other episodes that we talk about. We recently talked about AI art, so it,
Oh,
it
okay.
kind of goes like. And then we also had a conversation about a friend who is recently a mother, and what it's like being a new
Yes.
mom, being a freelancer, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that's related to working
Mm-hmm.
and what it's like, because I think fans may not understand what it is like, and they think it's all just fun, and
Yes.
like it's just like a fun hobby that we do, kind of thing. And so we wanted to show like a little bit more insight into that.
Yes. And and because if, now correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you guys started it. Was it 2022 last year? Or was it 2021? I can't
Yes.
remember.
You know what? I don't remember either.
Okay.
I'm pretty. No, I think it was 2022.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, because I feel like the years are passing by so fast. I don't even
Mm-hmm.
remember what started when.
Mm-hmm. Um, but I have to say, because I've listened to, you know, at least some episodes, and I love it. It's great, and also, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you guys release an episode every 2 weeks, and then you guys take off there'll be like a break for a couple months, and then you guys come back again. Is that correct?
Yes, it's usually we usually do it for holidays, and then like the start of the New Year's, or like summer break or whatever. It's it all depends on like our time schedule, and also like you know it's a new year, so we want to take a little bit of a break and
Yeah,
kind of like situate ourselves and think about new episodes and everything.
yeah. You know, but the thing is, yeah, for new listeners, for listeners, you know, check out, Sue and Sweeney's Spill Your Guts podcast, because the one episode that's clear in my mind. Well, of course, the Halloween one, but the one I love you guys talked about was conventions.
Oh
Like how,
yeah.
that was great, because you kind of going, okay, like I think like you guys have to, like, okay, we have to figure out how many prints to like order, how much to bring with us.
Right.
And it's just fascinating, because the other thing also too that you guys were talking, I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off the cuff, but the thing I loved about that episode was too that you guys had to also think about, okay, when we're there at the convention, you guys have to also be aware of who else is there too, in the sense of, if there's a bigger name, you know, um, and and the thing is, because like for most of us fans, we'll be attracted to the bigger names,
Sure.
and then and then of course, then there's the cost of, nowadays, and I understand you have to, creators have to do this, but there's going to be that extra charge of, how much, how much, like either $10 per signing or something like that,
Sure.
or so you guys are not only, it's trying to like make sure you guys bring enough for you guys to sell, but yet also to make sure that um you're trying to also be aware of your the fat amount of fans coming too, and what kind of budget they need to be limited to as well.
Right.
Yeah. But
Exactly.
yeah. Also too, and I think what's kind of cool too is that it's it's also kind of nice too, because in case there's you know new creators coming into the industry, at least it gives them a little bit of an idea of what be the behind the scenes, you know but yeah, so I think, yeah, that's great.
I'm glad you enjoy it. Thank you so much.
I know, yeah, and it's fun, like I said, and I also love the Halloween one too.
I'm
That
so glad.
was fun,
Oh,
where
I'm
you
so glad.
because no, I love it. I love it when you said you were like, I think in high school, and it was like, I think in one class, I don't know, like every so often they'll just pop in a movie,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
and I can't remember if, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think didn't they show Cujo in one of your classes or
I
something?
did. They did. Yeah. It was whatever the teacher felt like showing us that day.
um, I'm gonna ask, like, what do you and Sweeney have planned for this year for upcoming episodes?
Um, we have like a list of episodes we are interested in doing, and we're trying to get more guests on. Um, we might do a part 2 on AI.
Oh, okay.
With like with a different guest with a different perspective. Not a different as in like pro AI, as in like what they think. And
Mm-hmm.
if there's, anything that they can add on to the conversation, because I think it's a very important thing we need to talk about right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Yes.
Um and then yeah, we have a whole like fun list of things that we were planning. So we got to like sit down and kind of just like discuss and like bang out what episodes we want to do, and just, plan. It's all about planning this year.
Yes. I Trust me, I understand. All right. I'm gonna slowly start wrapping things up, and I want to get to the fun question.
Okay.
Now, what was the most exciting thing that happened to you at New York Comic Con 2022?
So the most exciting, I have to say, I went to the Harvey Awards show,
Hmm.
um, and Neil Gaiman was one of the speakers, and I got a chance to meet him. I Not for very long, but I did get a chance to be introduced because Karen Berger's a friend of his, of course.
Yes.
Obviously, because they work together. And so, I've introduced myself, and we're talking about that. Like, I was the artist on Carmilla, and I was like brave enough to ask for a picture. And
Hmm.
it was like, he probably doesn't even remember me or that interaction, but I was like, I was over the moon. It was definitely one of the bucket lists to meet him for sure.
Hmm. You know, because that was so cool, because I remember um seeing that picture. That
I
during
looked
that
so dorky. I was just like, had the biggest smile. I was like, oh, I don't even care.
yeah, but you met him and you have actual proof. It's
That's true. It's there. It's online forever.
that's the main thing.
That's right.
It's not like, yeah, I saw him at New York Comic Con. We talked for
Yeah, from
20
afar
minutes and
away. Yeah.
there was no picture.
Yeah.
All right. Now, for this year, 2023, any upcoming conventions or store signing in February or in March?
Signings, nothing I've set up yet. I don't know, um, but I would like to.
Hmm.
Uh, for when Carmilla comes out, or I guess by this time when it does come out, I want to set something up, but I have to be strategic about it. Not all
Yeah.
signings are successful. So
Yeah.
I want to think about where and when.
Hmm.
Um and I don't know yet for what shows I'm doing. I
Hmm.
have not really much lined up actually. I have a lot of work I have to do this year. So
Yeah.
it is a blessing.
Yes.
But I don't think I have time to travel a lot.
Hmm.
So if you
Yeah.
saw me last year, I think that's one of the only times you'll see me
Hmm.
for a while, for some
Hmm.
of you, in person at least.
Hmm. All right. Any closing words to our listeners?
Um, if you guys support Carmilla the First Vampire, it'll be in comic shops, hopefully your local comic shops. It's definitely in Midtown Comics. It's actually online as well.
Oh, okay.
I
Oh.
saw some online, like New Zealand comic shops have it online. Your local bookstores, Barnes and Nobles will have it. It's also
Hmm.
on Amazon. Yeah, if you just go online and just type in Carmilla the First Vampire trade paperback, because it's only it's a graphic novel,
Yes.
so it's only in paper, hardcover and paperback,
Oh,
and
okay.
or is it just hardcover? I don't remember. But
Hmm.
anyways, the whole book is gorgeous, by the way.
Yes.
So from the cover to the interiors to the back to the it's everything is great. So it's going to be in comic book shops, bookstores in February. It'll be in comic shops now.
Hmm.
If you guys go and support it, and please let me know what you guys think. I already support I already love the support that I'm getting now and would appreciate the support that I have in the future. It's
Hmm.
a really big project. It's a dream project. It's one of my dream projects, and also, we all like really worked hard on it. And so if you guys can show some love,
Hmm.
that would mean the world to me.
All right. Sue, thank you very much. Mahalo for your time. Thank you very much for coming back on the podcast. Thank you very much. I wish you all the success with Carmilla, the First Vampire. If you are a new comic book reader or a lifelong comic book reader, please check out Carmilla, the First Vampire. This original graphic novel is part of the Burger Books line through Dark Horse. This is a great horror story that has layers to it. It really does. I've read it. I loved it. Um,
Oh,
again,
thank you.
yes, no, it's really great. Um, you know, I also want to give a big mahal to Drew, the Codes of Comics for Fun and Profit, for all his hard work behind the scenes. Drew, thank you very much for letting me contribute to your podcast. If you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. Um, and I want to thank you, the listener. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
Thank you. Great to be here.
The good folks at Comics for Fun and Profit have been doing 2 episodes a week for quite some time now, and it's all thanks to, first of all, Jason, and second of all, our patrons who allow us to add the space on our server, broadcast more, store more, share more with you, the listeners. I'm envious of those of you who have unlimited storage and media server capabilities. We pay for ours here at the C4FAP. It ain't cheap. We thank you so much for those of you who go to patreon.com/comicsfunprofit and contribute at any level to say thanks, to say, I want to be a part of your Slack channel conversations. I want to get exclusives. I want to get early access. I want to get ad-free access. I want to get swag. I want to get some free stuff. Whatever your reasoning is, we appreciate it at any level because it does make a difference. So from the bottom of Kyle and I and Jason's heart, thank you for contributing.